So let's start. We're live or not?
Yeah, we're live. So.
Okay, let's start. I think everything is well. Hello, everyone, and nice to see here in the Reich Tech Club. My name is Anton Anokhin. I'm an employer brand manager here in Reich. And thank you for joining our meetup today. It was really difficult to gather all the speakers from different countries and even continents, and you from many companies. And let's start with some interactive part while I'm telling these several words of introduction. And let's start with Slido. It will help us today. We are going to run several polls for today. So prepare your QR scanners and help us to do this meetup more interactive. And the first question is, which companies members do we have here? You can see the QR code here. Let's meet. Several words about Reich. We're the company of the product also called Reich. It's a project management collaborative solution with a lot of features and options for teams and also for remote work. We have 20,000 clients and more than 3 million users and 9 offices all over the world, including 2 R&D hubs in Prague and in St. Petersburg, Russia. This meetup is brought to you by Reich Tech Club, which is a community of engineers, product managers, and customer-facing guys who want to share their experience and collaborate with colleagues from other companies. We usually run meetups 2 or 3 times per month in previous times before this quarantine. And we ran it in Prague and in St. Petersburg in cozy informal atmosphere, with networking, pizza, beer, and so on. But now we are figuring out how to bring all this stuff and all this atmosphere into online format. And if you have any ideas on that, please share with us in chat. We will be very thankful for this. So it was really complicated to save pizza and beer for now. And there will be no refreshments from our side today, bad news. But we'll try to keep everything else and prepare your drinks for yourself. If you enjoy the event and want to know about our upcoming events, you can follow us on the meetup.com, Eventbrite, or TimePad, or subscribe to our newsletter. You can find the proper link in the description to this video. And maybe let's see what's the results of the poll. Can we see this? Probably we can see it later. I don't have a chance to see this. So let's move on. And several words about the format. Today we will have 3 talks. After each talk, there will be time for your questions. And you can leave your questions in the YouTube chat box here in the right corner. And if we won't have time for all your questions, we will ask our speakers to respond it later. So be active. And I also want to ask you about the feedback on the meetup. You can really help us to become better. Please leave your feedback in the forum. The link is also in the description. You can do it after the meetup. And the last but not least, I want to introduce my colleague, Reich PM, Reich Product Manager, Maria Misyuk, who will be moderating this evening. this event all the evening. So welcome, Masha, and let's start.
Thanks, Anton, for the short introduction. Hi, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm happy to moderate that. This meetup today, we got a number of interesting topics to talk about. Basically, you've seen that all, but we'll be talking about three things, and there'll be three speakers. It will be Dmitry Mieliki from Jira Cloud from Atlassian, who's joining us from very far away Australia. Anton Danila, who'll be a group PM, who'll be talking about how to manage a team of products in challenging times. And then we have Martin, who will be, Martin Matish, who will be talking about reorganizing product strategy during the pandemic. So the first I'd like to invite to talk about his topic, it's Dmitry. Hi, Dmitry, how are you doing?
Hey, what's up? Do you see me, guys?
Yeah, we can see you and hear you loud and clear. First of all, thanks for joining. I know it's a late hour for you, but honestly, it's nice that you found time to talk about your topic. So, in a brief couple of words, right? So you'll be talking about how it is difficult or not difficult, or maybe there are ways to make it not difficult to manage a product that is quite mature. And well, some of those practices that you figured out at your company actually are actually applicable for today's situation. So with that being said, I'm forwarding the word to you. Take it away.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Maria. Very glad to be here. So thanks, guys, for inviting me. You're absolutely right. It's just the midnight here, so I will be trying to talk not so loud because there are many people most probably sleeping in other apartments in the same building, so just not to disturb them. Also, you can see some decoration here. So we had my wife's birthday yesterday. And with all this, I think we can get started. So let me share my screen first. And just let me know if you see the presentation and it's full screen. All good?
Yep.
Wonderful. So I'm Dmitry. I'm from Atlassian, as Maria mentioned. And just let me, sorry, just 1 second. I don't see my mouse. It's interesting. Okay, never mind. So I'm from Atlassian. I'm from Jira Cloud. I've been working here for a year and a half. And today I want to talk mostly about challenges that we have, that I personally have, and I think that any company could have when your product, as you mentioned, is quite mature. So when it's, let's say in case of Atlassian and Jira, 18 years old. There are many different challenges, mostly connected with many dependencies, many teams, complexity of product itself, expectations of customers. And there are many things that could help you to deal with this. And basically, I was asked many times by my friends and by my ex-colleagues when I moved to Atlassian, like, how do you do things there? What are your processes, and what's the unique secret sauce of Atlassian? Like, what did it make so popular in terms of usage and in terms of success of the company and the product, in particular Jira? And I was trying to think about during this year and a half almost, and I found that actually it's kind of business as usual. We do pretty much the same things which any normal product manager should do, like customer development. We are looking at the right metrics. We are iterating and learning. We are establishing the right agile processes and following all these best practices which are well known in the product management world. At the same time, I always felt that something is a bit different. There are some unique things that I've never seen before, which is worth to talk about. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So mostly I will be talking about small different tips and tricks that I found and that I observed in Atlassian, which may be not so important independently, but altogether, I believe that's what could make the secret sauce that helps you to move faster and keep the ball rolling when your product is quite large and quite complicated, as you will see a bit later. And before I start, just let me say a few words about myself. So I've been working here for, as I mentioned, a year and a half as a product manager. Before this, actually, I was in Reich managing a team of product managers. So again, just glad that you guys invited me here. Very cool to see many familiar faces. And before Reich, I was a product manager in many different companies, and originally I started as a software developer in Microsoft, but I kind of pivoted quite quick to product management, and I still think it was the right decision. So now I think we can get it started. So, and before we talk about tips and tricks that I mentioned, I want just to give you the better context and to share some vision about what challenges do we face with on a regular basis. And because of this, I want to start from the beginning. And it's quite right, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It was really a long time ago, 2002, and it was quite far, like Australia is quite far from almost everything in the world. So Sydney 2002, that was the year when two founders of Atlassian, the time they were fresh graduates, created this company and launched the first version of Jira. And just to give you the better understanding of how long ago was it, this year was when Euro was officially launched in Eurozone and everyone started to use Euro in some of the countries. That year was when Windows XP was launched just a couple of months ago, actually in 2001, in December, I believe, but still it was just the very, very early stage of Windows XP adoption. And lately, last but not least, the second part of Lord of the Rings was launched this year. So long ago. And the first version of Jira was launched that year, and it looked kind of like this. So it was pretty straightforward and simplified in terms of the experience. And the main idea of Jira, I think most of you are familiar with Jira or at least heard about it, but in a few words, that was, and it is still, a tool for, as it's called, issue tracking and project management. So that time, the main competitor was, and the best example on the market was Bugzilla, another tool for bug tracking and issue tracking. So the main goal of Jira was to compete with Bugzilla and actually suit the needs of similar customers who used Bugzilla before this. And 18 years later, Jira is still doing well. It's kind of a well-known product in the market, I think. It still has the main audience as a software development teams. And that's actually the product developed by engineers for engineers. So that's the main Jira solution, Jira software is tailored for software development teams. And out of the box, you have such things as sprints, agile, backlog, integration with DevOps tools and development tools. And all these things are kind of help you to get on board and to streamline your software development process. And that was always the main target audience of Jira, but lately we launched several more vertical solutions for other audiences as well, but still software development is the main market, I would say. And that's how it looks like right now, right? So you have boards, you have different sections, and altogether it gives you quite a sophisticated solution. And now let me talk a bit more about, I would say, complexities that we have and challenges that we have with Jira. So originally we had just one Jira, and from the beginning it was definitely Jira Server, because in 2002, I mean, if you building a solution for B2B, definitely it should be on premise. I mean, we almost didn't have any cloud solutions, especially for business in 2002. So it was Jira Server, and around 5 or 6 years ago, we had so-called fork, where we split Jira Server to Jira Server and Jira Cloud. And started from this moment, we already started to have two kind of different products, because different teams were managing these products. They had different goals and different metrics and even different audiences, because Jira Server was always for huge enterprise customers who are after scalability, performance, and all the things that normally enterprise customers are looking for. When Jira Cloud was kind of catching up with all the feature gaps and all the things that we already had in the server, at the same time trying to suit the needs of medium-sized customers. So definitely we also have large enterprise customers in cloud as well. So that's already some kind of complexity that you could have when you have two types of products, server and cloud. So there is kind of challenge mostly connected with consistency of what you do and dependencies with other teams that actually build completely different products, which still actually the same product. So duality in place as well. So, but it's even more complex. You have vertical solutions based on top of Jira. Jira Software, Jira Core, Jira Service Desk, all of them are built on top of Jira platform, and they have quite a lot of similar features or even the same features, but at the same time, there are different solutions tailored for different needs of different type of customers or type of the teams. So for example, Jira Service Desk is for help desk teams who work with tickets, and definitely software is for software development, and core is for general project management. And we have the same set of vertical solutions for cloud. And again, these three vertical solutions for both for cloud and server, they are a bit different, each of them, for server cloud. And that brings another challenge in many different ways, actually. And to make it even more interesting, we have something special for Jira Cloud, which is called Jira NextGen, next generation of projects. And I'm from this team. I'm from this group of teams who is working on Jira NextGen, with the main goal to build actually a new Jira inside the old Jira. We introduced another type of project within the same product, within the same list of projects in, let's say, classic Jira. But this new type of project is absolutely different and built from scratch. And we're trying to keep all the same granularity and flexibility of Jira, but to make it more streamlined and straightforward. And that brings another complexity or challenge, if you will, compared with server, because in server, we don't have next-gen Jira. So that's one angle of how we can look at this from. So another complexity or another challenge is in the power of Jira itself. And just to give you some example, let me walk you through this story. When I joined Atlassian, I took an exercise. I mean, we have an exercise for all newcomers where you need to configure a Jira instance to establish some process according to the instruction. And you need to configure the right issue types, workflows, fields, and all these things that define the process, your workflow, your process of your team and your projects. And the first step was you need to create a new issue type and map it to some certain projects. So for your better understanding, issue type is just a type of work that you can have in your project, like epics, stories, subtasks, like type of work. And it's customizable. You can actually create any new issue type. And I thought, too easy. I just need to open Jira configuration, and most probably then I figure out what to do. So that's the Jira configuration page. You have many different sections on the left. And the first one is issue types. So I went there. Actually, I managed to create the issue type. And then I found that there are many more different sections, and I have no idea what does it mean, like screen schemas, issue type, screen schemas, workflow schemas. Like, how does this work? I create issue type, but I still don't see it in my project. And I Googled it. And I found an article, most probably written by someone from Atlassian, I believe, where it was described how to configure your Jira. And it turned out to be the whole process. Just long story short, if you want to configure your project, you need to create an issue type. And then using issue type scheme, you need to map this issue type with your project. So your project know which issue type to use. But that's not enough. You need to create fields if you want to use any kind of fields in your issue, which is mapped with this issue. And using field configuration scheme, map this field with this project. So this project know which fields to use with which issue types. But if you want to reflect these fields and pop up them at some certain moments of your process. So let's say when you task is moved from one status to another, you want your teammates to fill in some certain field. You need to build screens, and using screen scheme which maps screen with issue types. You need then to map screen scheme through issue type screen scheme with project, which define which issue type use screen through issue type screen scheme. And I think you got the idea. So it turned out that that's a whole process, and there is a whole certification for Jira admins to configure Jira. And there is a role in large enterprise companies, like separate role, Jira administrator, where people just sit all the day and do this stuff based on the requirements from project managers and those who work with Jira every day. And that's like my first thought was like, it's too complicated. Like, how could it work? Like how anyone could love it. But then it turned out for me that actually that's the main power and the main value of the product, because it helps you, it enables you to build, any kind of the process of any level of complexity that you want. Like imagine the biggest company in the world which work on the most complicated products through the most complicated processes. You can build this process through Jira and in Jira. And that's both advantage and definitely a huge challenge, especially from product management perspective. Because yes, with great power comes great responsibility. And when you do something, when you make some improvements, and especially try to make them, to build them iteratively and to build them one after another and learn as we go and use all these agile methodologies, it's almost like you built a plane with all the technologies, with all the engines, and with all the small details, but which is more interesting, this plane is still kind of flying, and you need to do this on the go. So the main question that I'm trying to tackle and to answer during this presentation is, so how to move the needle and deliver incremental value when your plane is actually at 40K feet and your customers are happily relaxing in business class and you don't want to disturb them. How do you want to change, and how can you change something in this product when you have so many vertical solutions, so many different versions of the product, and so powerful and challenging at the same time architecture of the product? How is it possible at all to make any change and not to just to be overwhelmed with all these challenges? So that's like, spoiler alert, that's possible. That's what we do, and I think we are doing well. And again, we are following quite the regular product management practices and business as usual, but there are some things that stood out for me that I believe are quite interesting, and I've never seen them before, that help us to build the right things. And let's start. So the first thing that I believe help us to move faster and to keep the ball rolling is that our product help itself us to move faster. So, and then now I'm going to walk through some kind of advices that I would give to myself if I were to build a new company. And the first advice would be, try to build a platform for growth. And especially the first thing, try to build an ecosystem around your product. And that's what they did in Jira, and actually in Atlassian in general. So in Jira, we have the whole marketplace available for our Jira customers. So people can build their apps on top of Jira. Companies do their business building these apps and selling them to Jira customers. Jira customers using these apps and asking developers of these apps for new features instead of asking for these features us. Developers of these apps build features that are missed on the product where they see opportunity, which helps us to stay focused on the right things without reacting to all the frequent and maybe sudden and urgent requests from large customers. This marketplace thing is the eye-opener for me, because it seems like that's just a deal breaker if you want to move fast and if you want to keep focused on your main strategy instead of small separate features that could be required or asked for by your customers. And just to give some examples, like how could it help you? So first of all, if you go to the Atlassian community where customers discuss different features or problems and try to solve them, you will see that there are almost no requests for features on customer behalf from customers to Atlassian. Like, they normally walk through some problems, they name some problems, they ask questions, and then other people come to the thread and say that most probably you can't solve this problem through this or another app, or as in this example, they even promote their own apps here. And also they normally just discuss ecosystem apps, APIs, and scripts that you can build to solve this problem. I mean, it really helps us, first of all, to see how to stay focused, as I mentioned, on the right goals and on the right things. Also, it helps us to not derail ourselves, and it helps other people to build business. But on top of this, but which is most important, it helps us to build the right partnership with developers of these apps. So imagine if you have another 1,000 of actually product managers who know what your customers need, and you can talk with them on a regular basis and define and discuss who should build what and how we should keep the right balance what is built inside the product and what is built by the vendors. I mean, that's massive. I mean, that was a deal breaker and eye opener for me when I came here, that we don't need to build everything. We just need to build the most powerful and the right things here at Jira. And that's cool. Another advice that I would give to myself is that solutions are good, but platforms rule the world. And here at Atlassian, we have the whole bunch of different platforms and different layers. First of all, we have cloud platform. So we have many different products here, not only Jira, we have Confluence, Trello, Bitbucket, Opsgenie, and many more. And there is a cloud platform that lies underneath and helps us to unify experience and streamline this product-to-product transition for our customers in many different ways, in user login, in access, in audit log, and different security things. I mean, that's really helps us to stay focused on the customer needs in terms of the solution itself, when all the platform things are built in cloud platform and available for any product at the same time. I mean, that's really beneficial. Also, we have Jira platform. So I'm personally from Jira platform. We build things that are available for many vertical solutions at the same time. So I'm personally working on workflows and workflow editing experience. So it means that when I implement new feature and we as a team implement new feature in the workflow, it's available at that moment for all the vertical solutions. Jira Software, Jira Core, Jira Service Desk. Again, we have this platform way of building things. And when we build or when we have an initiative to build something, we always can have a discussion whether it's a platform-ish thing or whether it's something that should be built as a solution. And that, again, helps in the future when you want to build something new. It could turn out that you already have this as a platform feature somewhere else, and you can just reuse it even from the different product. That's cool. And also we have, as I call it, configuration platform. So it means that we have solutions, definitely. We have solutions that are tailored for certain type of customers and customer groups. But at the same time, our features in the product are built in such a way that they can be used in unexpected use cases, even in Jira workflows, which I am working on. So in Jira workflows, we have many different workflow rules, and you can build if-then logic to define different conditions. And here, definitely keep in mind many use cases that our customers are looking for when we build new rules for the workflow. At the same time, there are so many new ways of using rules and so many use cases that I find when I talk with customers that I was not aware of and that we even didn't expect, that it's just, it really helps. First of all, because it helps customers to find a new way of using your product, and then you can use it to actually find new opportunities on the market and to build new vertical solutions, because actually it seems like, hey, your customers are already using your product in this way that you didn't expect. But thank you that you allow them to do this because you built things in a platformish way. And now you can leverage this and build something on top of this as a vertical solution, and which will scale up your business and will help you to move faster. That's cool. That's another thing that I would always keep in mind for myself. And the last thing, just want to mention it briefly, I think that's kind of unique for Atlassian itself. We have a pretty interesting business model, which is e-commerce business model. We don't have sales managers. We don't have sales at all. Our customers try Jira, try other products, opt in, give it a try. If they like it, then deploy it to the whole team. They pitch it to the whole organization, and eventually we have wall-to-wall deployment without any sales activity. And I mean, there are many different benefits of this, but the main benefit that I see is, for me personally as a product manager, that we have our customers as partners who not pushing us for something because we never pushed them for something. I mean, they know that they made this decision by themselves. They tried the product, they liked it, and they deployed it with maybe our help of our consultants. And if they miss something in the product, they will never push us. They will build by themselves a partnership relationship with us, because they understand that we never push them. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to push us. And we just need to discuss together how we can improve the product. And again, keep in mind, marketplace, apps that help us to make customers happy. And eventually we all work together as partners, and there is almost no push in any sense in what we do on everyday basis. We just build a product better without hard deadlines, because we don't have, let's say, sales who push the product to do something faster, without stress of, I will talk more about this, but we have value which is called exactly like don't fuck the customer. Sorry for this, but that's the exact word. And we know that we're not going to F any of the customers, because we are not promising them anything, because they are not pushing us for this. That's very good. So that's another very unique thing that I noticed here and observed, and that helps us to move faster again. So that was mostly about what helps us to do things faster in the right way. But what can we do by ourselves? And another group of ideas or observations is about processes that we built here. And the main idea, or the main advice, is that it would be cool if you can build such a process which guide your people, guide your teams, and have some kind of governance, so you can make sure that you are moving in the right direction as a whole company. At the same time, there is always need to be a space for freedom and for creativity and for things, for moments when teams should keep the right balance by themselves and define the processes by themselves. So far sounds a bit abstract, but wait for it. So the first thing that stood out for me again, how we actually manage the teams here. Normally, in all the companies where I worked before, product manager is the only leader of the team, which means that normally as a product manager, you are defining the vision, you are defining the roadmap. We do it here as well, but you are the only you are the only guy who say team what to do, when to do, and why it is important. Here in Atlassian, we have a notion of triads, when you have engineer, team lead, designer, and product manager who manage the team together as a triad. And these three persons, they are equal in terms of decision-making and discussions and leading the team. So, by the way, that's my triad. So that's Nicole, awesome designer, the best, I think one of the best designers that I've ever seen. Christopher, team lead, who've been working here at Atlassian for years, like many years, and he know all the small details of the architecture. He know all the hidden places and pieces of Jira that I wouldn't find by myself ever. And so I'm personally mostly focused, as normally PM product managers do, on customer value, business opportunities, competitors, and all these things. And altogether, we define what the team should be working on. And that's okay, and that's expected when designers come with their initiatives and they say that we need to build this because we have experience depth and we cannot afford not doing this. Or engineering lead saying that we have technical depth and we need 2 sprints of the team just to work on this. And I don't have the right to say that we are not doing this if I don't have the right arguments to do the opposite. And it's normally happen, I think, in many different companies, but here we are truly equal in terms of decision making, and we are always trying to keep the right balance, which means we don't have much of tech depth here. We don't have much of experience depth and UX depth. So we are all the time building all the things in the right balance, mostly because of this. And I've never seen this before, and it's a very different thing. And you actually should get used to it as a PM when you see that you are not the only one who is leading the team. You are not the only one who can be the leader. And that's totally up to you how this will work for you. So it works well for me. So we are doing the right things. We are keeping the right balance, and we are working really great as a team. But that's something that I found very interesting here. Talking about decisions, we have some space for creativity, but also we have some things that are well-defined, streamlined, and you just need to follow this process if you want to make this happen. And we have streamlined process when it comes to decision-making, especially if we talk about impactful decisions, especially one-way door decisions, when we need to make the right call and we have only one option to do this, only one opportunity to do this. And there is a whole process which is called DAISY, which states for driver, approver, contributors, and informed. That process helps you to, it defines the process and it defines the steps which you need to take to make the decision and to fix this decision, and make everyone sure that this decision is made, and most probably it was very well walked through and discussed, and it's kind of okay to move forward and never come back to the decision, because most probably we did our best to make our decision and this decision right now. Definitely we can reiterate on decisions if market changes or some external factors ask us to do this, but decision making is very important process here. And we have Confluence page, Confluence template for this. We have the whole process, and the driver of the decision, creating the page, explaining all the options, driving the decision. Finally, someone should approve this decision and we fix it. And the best part of it, that we have a track of all of the decisions during these 18 years in one single place. And just to understand, this could be like huge decisions, business-driven decisions, or market opportunity decisions, like those which could really long time to discuss and to make a call. And the good part about this is that we have new people coming all the time into Atlassian. Like, we're growing very fast. And these people are smart, and they are always going to challenge all the decisions that we made in the past. And if we didn't have this, kind of database of all the decisions, we would need to spend another day for any new reiteration of the same topic. And it's so helpful when you can just go back and walk through all the decisions made in this company for years, and just then come back and say, okay, we don't want to discuss this, and we don't need to discuss this because it seems it was considered and walked through 2 years ago, and it still makes sense. That's good, all good. We should go and move forward. So that's something that I really like here, and most probably I will bring with myself to wherever I go, because that's something that really helps to move forward. So then, next advice, next thing that I noticed, that here everyone trying to build shared understanding of all the things that happen here. And let me talk first about our tool set that we have here at Atlassian. So we definitely use Confluence as a wiki, as a documentation tool where we store all the documents from specs to sprint plans and reports and outcomes reports and everything, like all the companies stored in Confluence. And also we definitely use Jira for all the development related things like issues, bugs, work items, sprints, all this stuff. Definitely Slack and calendar. But the main thing here that I want to emphasize, that this documentation part is extremely important. So what I said before about decisions and decision making is applicable to actually everything that we do here. There is a whole culture of documenting and writing down the things that happen in here, from features to specs to any decisions to any outcomes to anything. We have documented everything, and it's a bit time consuming. But again, when you have a company of this size and with this kind of history, long history, it's the only way of keeping everyone on the same page, especially when you have so many different teams focused on different goals and different strategies. So just want to again emphasize that this culture of documenting everything and having a really good structure of all the decisions, documents, and everything that we have in the company over years is something that I liked. Next one. That's a fun one. Prioritize human interaction over tools. So these are several photos that I found on my phone that I took in the office. And you can see there are a whole bunch of sticky notes. And the whole office of Atlassian is covered with sticky notes and different printed out papers with different texts and all these things. And I was always curious about why is it happening here in this way? Why don't we just go online and do all the things online? And there is one example. We have a research team who helps us with many different things. In particular, they help us with analyzing customer feedback. And there is a process called affinity sorting, when they walk through all the feedback made by customers, and they categorize this feedback and then share it with the whole company on a regular monthly basis. And anyone who is interested can apply and take a part in this process and help them to categorize the feedback. So that's what I did. I applied, and then I was asked to come to their part of the office when we had office and help them during a couple of hours. So I came there. It was a small room, all covered with sticky notes, and then explained me that I need to take a paper, like hard copy of the feedback, many pieces of feedback from customers, walk through it and write down on sticky notes the most important parts of this feedback, and then categorize them, sticking them on the right place on the wall. And my question obviously was, why is it so hard? Why don't we just do it online? And they said, like, you would see. And it turned out that it makes sense. I spent there a couple of days going in, going out. Several more people were coming in, coming out. We were talking about feedback. We were talking about the product, asking different questions each other, talking actually about different random stuff. And after a while, I found that, first of all, I know so many new people in the company that I never met before. Second of all, I know so many new things about the product that we discussed there that I never heard about before. And also, I'm kind of confident, and I know what's the customer feedback, which is one of the most important parts of the product manager job, that I found that actually it makes sense to have this kind of process when you just get together, do some paperwork, do some talking, and eventually you share the information, and somehow naturally it happens that everyone is aware of everything and everyone knows everyone, even if you have several thousands of folks in the company. And then I found that we have more and more these kind of workshops in the company for different processes, for different reasons. When people get together, put some sticky notes on the walls, talk about some stuff, and then naturally they know about everything. So I really like this approach, and I keep in mind that human interaction is definitely something very important and should be in place all the time. And actually it kind of resonates with what we have in Agile Manifesto, right? So people and interactions should be over tools and documentation, I believe, something like this. The last thing about processes, I believe it was the last one, place. So that's an Atlassian thing called place. Place. There is a whole public portal for this, and this place, they basically describe different processes that you can have and follow when you deal with some certain problems. And that's kind of a library of well-defined, I think play is the right word for this, plays, when you get together with the team, follow some certain steps, and eventually you're guaranteed that you have some outcome. You will have some outcome as a result. And these plays are aligned with certain problems that you can deal with within product team. And everything that you need to do is just to find this play, be prepared, walk through all the stages, and eventually, in most of the cases, you will have some solution. You will have some outcome of this 1 hour meeting. So I give you an example of Daisy, like decision making. That's another play that is here. Now this affinity sorting is also most probably a play here. So there is a whole bunch of processes available, which are available for everyone, which you can follow if you have some struggles and you have some problems to deal with. So just something very useful, maybe not something so much irregular, but yeah, just another good resource that I thought it could be beneficial to share with you guys. And the last one, kind of regular thing, it's not very unique to Atlassian, give some space for creativity. So we have this hackathons called Ship It, when you have 24 hours to innovate. Many companies have hackathons, and that's not something unique. But there is actually a whole culture here about Ship It. And it's very good when you have this kind of process, when you encourage people to be creative and do some crazy stuff. And many good things came out of this Ship It initiative. Actually, Jira Service Desk, which is vertical solution, one of the most successful vertical solutions, was a result of one of the Ship Its. as well as such weird things as homebrew or do-it-yourself video studio, like many different crazy things happening during these days. And that's fun, at the same time, very beneficial for the company. So good thing to keep in mind. And talking about fun, the last part is about culture. It's very quick. I try to make it very fast. Several more things that I noticed that help us to move faster, but mostly connected with what people think and how they do things. First of all, values. That sounds a bit more like marketing, bullshit. So it's mostly used in many companies for HRs to attract more hires, and then no one remember about values anymore. But basically, values are something that here people use on an everyday basis, and I was very surprised with this. So we have some interesting values like open company, no bullshit, or don't fuck the customer. Very straightforward values. And I hear regularly on an everyday basis when on the meeting someone can say, so hey mate, this thought that you shared, I mean, sorry, but in the spirit of open company, no bullshit, that's total bullshit. We are not going to do this. And that helps people to be direct. That helps people to streamline the conversation. And even if they say something uncomfortable, this kind of values help them to do the right call faster. And that's something that I noticed, I was surprised with, that people actually use them by themselves. And I thought it a good thing to share. Another one, again, coming back to Confluence. Aside all the documents that I mentioned, all the work stuff, we have blogging culture here at Atlassian. You can write your blogs in Confluence. And I was surprised how open people are here and what kind of private stuff they can share, and they share here within these blogs when they feel that that's the right time for this. And the whole company supports this. So that's kind of the safe environment that was a surprise for me. I mean, I've seen the blog of the guy who talked how he get a mortgage to buy a house. And I mean, that was pretty personal stuff. I've seen many blogs about grief and very, personal stuff, sad times when people just wanted to share it, and the whole company then just tapped you on the shoulder and said, "Hey, mate, that's okay. Just you will be fine," and that helped. And altogether, seeing these blogs all the day helps you to get this feeling that that's actually a safe environment, and you can talk about almost anything, and that's good. Almost the last one, remote-friendly processes. The one thing that I wanted to mention and that I really liked, that actually we were practicing remote-friendly processes way before this COVID times and way before we went remote as all the companies. So we had some meetings and we had some processes in my team which we tried to make remote-friendly. We even had stand-ups and sprint plannings just from our desks through Zoom, just to make more comfortable those people who are working from home these days. And even if everyone was in the office, we still were doing this just for the sake of being remote ready. And that's something that actually really helped us, my team personally, and us as a company. Because now, I mean, yes, a couple of days ago, we got a message from founders saying that we're going to stay remote and work from home until the end of this year, like 7 months more. And almost, I mean, pretty much everyone was happy because we are really kind of remote friendly. And that was cool. So that was something that really helped. Last thing, I think I'm running out of time, so just want to make it really quick. That's the desk. We have absolutely different desks in the offices. But the one thing which is similar and which made the difference is the wheel. That was the first company where I saw that the teams were building from scratch in one day, and people were just standing up and pushing and leaning up their leaning in and pushing their desk and moving into another team in one day without any friction, without any pain, and it was very natural. I myself, I moved six times, I guess, during this year and a half within the office from one place to another. I changed a couple of times the team, and it was very natural. The whole company is agile in terms of office and where you sit and where you work, what goals do you have, and you can just kick off the new team with a new goal and with a new strategy in 2 days, and everyone will be happy with this. So that's cool. And we're sharing all the time. The last slide. So we are a huge team of PMs. You see all the guys that you see on these photos are product managers of Atlassian. And we have a yearly conference where actually it's just a conference. We share all different crazy things and thoughts about how we do our work, how we work in a very open manner, and also networking and getting better to know each other. All these things help us to make sure that we are keeping ourselves focused on the right things, and we can deal with all these challenges that I mentioned in the beginning. So yeah, that helps us. And luckily, we are in a good position to keep moving and keep the ball rolling. So I put together all these advices to myself together on this slide. Hope it helped. Hope I made it a bit interesting. And if you have any questions, happy to discuss. Sorry for running a bit out of time, but I think we're good here. So thank you.
Thanks, Dima. Thanks for a great presentation. I've actually noted myself a couple of things that we can take here to Reich. I really like that decision-making history, because like as a fresh PM, I come to a team that has a long history of releases, and I really need to spend time talking to a lot of people in order to figure out what the decisions were made. So probably start keeping the history of those decisions can help us out. We're running a bit of time, but we would like to give our audience a bit of time to, to make a pause between the meetings, between the speakers. But I probably take out time for one question. So we got a question from Ilya, who is asking, so changes to platforms are usually more complex and impacting bigger parts of the system that are more targeted and focused on solutions. So how do you still keep those changes as small shippable increments?
First of all, I don't think that we have a goal to keep all the platform changes small. I mean, we definitely follow iterative approach when we talk about solutions and building things that should hit the general audience sooner than later, like building some new features for some certain group of customers. But when we talk about platformish things, I think it's okay here to be focused on a outcome, eventual outcome, and do all the things right in some ways, in some cases, instead of moving even faster when you talk especially about platform things. And I believe in this kind of environment, when you have so many products and so many platforms, that's actually the only way how you do this. The only thing you should keep in mind that you should clearly distinguish platform things and solution things, things that should be long-term focused and should enable many products and should enable much more value in the long-term future. And those things that should be built fast should bring value faster and should enable customers to use products as soon as possible. So I think we managed to clearly distinguish these two things, and those which falls into platform category, we are okay to do this a bit longer and as a big chunks of work. At the same time, we really spend a lot of time to figure out and flesh out all the details before we start this work. So that's actually a small projects rather than small features, big projects rather than small features. At the same time, solutions are shipped fast and yeah, in different way. Hope I answered this question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Thank you again, Dima. So Dima, if you could take some time to go online to YouTube and answer some of the other questions, that would be great. And to our audience, we're taking a 5-minute break. And so we'll start in 7 minutes or 6 minutes already sharp. And Anton Danilov will talk about his topic. Thanks.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're back from a little break. So we'll just wait for 1 minute, one more minute before we start. And while in between sessions, don't forget to answer our polls about changes that happened during this interesting time during the COVID 2019. Yeah, let's wait a bit. All right, so I'm happy to introduce Anton. Anton, can you speak up? Can you hear us? Are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm really glad to be here, and thank you, Dima, for your wonderful presentation. That was amazing to hear, and it is really amazing what a technology can do today. It's like, you know, we're talking between multiple countries, multiple continents, multiple time zones, and even different days even, right? So basically, it's a different day in Australia right now. So that's really a piece of magic that we can see. All right, so shall we start or shall we wait a bit?
Sure, just to take it away. I'll just probably give a brief a brief intro that Anton will be talking about personal stories, how PMs can actually help themselves to survive through this uneasy times. So switching from Dima's conversations about processes towards more personal strategies. Anton, take it away.
Yeah, so again, hi everyone. My name is Anton. I will give you a little bit of introduction into who am I. Just a moment, let me share my screen now, then confirm that you can see it. All right, I'm sharing my screen right now.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, all right. So hi again. As I said, my name is Anton. I'm a group product manager here at Rike. I am managing a group of products, which is called Enterprise. And our main goal is to make our product suit better and really work well in enterprise environments with large customers and large companies. And I've been working with Rike for, just a moment. I've been with Rike for about 4 years now, and I started with 0 developers. Coincidentally, I had no developers, no team, and that transformed into 1 person and then 2 people, and then that was 1 team and then 2 teams. Right now it's 5 teams. Our group is responsible for major integrations, security aspects, e-commerce, packaging of the product, and a lot of other things. And we're really proud about how we are transforming the product towards enterprise. Before Rike, I was managing e-commerce at Kaspersky, and before that I worked for Microsoft and Sun Microsystems. Let me talk a little bit about Rike in general, just to give you context around what we're talking about and where does all these stories or practices come from. So Rike is a collaboration platform. So it's a platform where people collaborate online. It becomes really increasingly important right now in this situation with COVID, but also before that, 19,000 plus companies joined Rike and became our customers just because we are helping people to collaborate online and do their job better. And over 35,000 new clients registered for a trial. And many of those clients that we have in companies that we work with are really major, big companies. The names you all know, and these are not all of the names that I can name, but these are some of the names. And these are the companies that trust us with doing their online collaboration in our system. And because of that, there's a lot to kind of manage. There's a lot of platform to build, and there's a lot of product to kind of develop. That is why we have a pretty substantial product management team. It's over 30 people, 30 product managers, and it is a big kind of team to kind of manage that large of a product. And to kind of give you a context about what I'm going to talk about is that when we are talking about product management, when we're talking about what do product managers do, I always show people this funny picture. And it says that it's very easy, right? But at the same time, it's very hard. And I think that this situation in which we are all right now, where the borders are closed, when everyone is forced to work from home, where a lot of the economy has kind of turmoil and there's volatility in place, it becomes even more important to mention that product management is kind of a stressful kind of job that we'll do, and we have to kind of be aware of the crisis situations. We have to know our strategies. We have to know how to get over it. We have to know how to manage it. And I don't want you to think that this presentation or this talk was designed around COVID-19 or around the current crisis in the economy or around what's happening right now. Actually, the inception of this talk happened late 2019, maybe in September, October, when we're talking with our HR BP about how to actually share the knowledge that we have. And the first talk around this series I made in February, when no lockdowns happened, when the problem was only in China. And this was not about that. This was about crisis in general. This was about what happens when you manage a product in a hard and challenging situation. That's why what I want to talk about today is how to manage a product in challenging times. And I want to talk about this from the perspective of your own personal strategies as a product manager. So basically, how do you approach this? What are your strategy towards that? What do you do and how do you do that? Much more about what specifically is your kind of day-to-day routine, or what do you do with some specific things. So I want to go a little bit more philosophical about that, but I will explain that in a very, I will explain that in a very specific terms, in terms of we're going to talk about real situations and real life challenges. All right, so I'd like to start with the first strategy, which is based around the concepts of leadership and directive management. And let me explain why this matters. Basically, a leadership position for a product manager is a very important kind of piece of their work, because teams that are led by leaders, by natural leaders, by people who are leading their teams, are very effective. They're much more effective than any other team that you can think of. And as a rule, we can see that a leader will care for their team well-being, for their team capacity, for their team staff, and everything that's connected with their team. A leader will care for a safe environment for their team. And that is a very important point, because safety and kind of protection is something that allows people to be productive, right? And then a leader always kind of includes their team into the decision-making process. And so by doing that, they're sharing the responsibility. They're kind of removing that position that they're making the decisions for the team. They're making the decisions with the team instead. And as a result, they recognize when the team has made an accomplishment. It's not them as a manager made an accomplishment. It's the team with the leader made an accomplishment together. And these are very important points, and I'd like to talk about that, but we'll not kind of stress more about it. But there are a few important points about that. So at the same time, there is a different strategy, and there's a different strategy of management, which is something that I call directive management. So when we're talking about directive management, this is a management where The directions are given, they have to be executed. Think about army, think about a government institution or something, right? And it happens so that in software environments, in environments where innovation is imminent, directive management doesn't work, really. It works in a poor way. And there are reasons for that. There are multiple, but I will give you several. So orders or commands will be executed exactly as they said, and exactly word to word, everything will be done. But that's at best. At worst, things will be done at minimum just to avoid punishment. Then people will avoid problems that they might have if they do not do what they're told, right? And that is why they will be motivated by avoidance. They will be not motivated by achieving something. They will be trying to mitigate the problem before it started. They will be trying to do less, and they will be trying to kind of stay safe in this situation, so to say. And then because of that, innovative approach would not just appear, it would not work. And innovation will be virtually inexistent in this situation. You can continue, and I mean, we can talk about it, but definitely I think that we all know what it is and we'll know that it doesn't work. So what does it kind of have to do with crisis? Thing is that when desperate time comes, you have to do desperate measures. And sometimes these measures will mean that you will have to act quickly. You will have to make decisions very fast. And sometimes you will not have time to include your team. You will not have time to share the responsibility. You will not have the ability to be a leader in that kind of normal form. But what you will have to do instead, you will have to become a directive manager, right? You might need to act directively. And that's a conflict, right? Because you want to be a leader and you're a natural leader inside. You want to lead people. You want people to follow you, right? Your teams will follow you, not you will push them towards your goals, right? But at the same time, in a challenging environment, you're forced to act differently. So how do you manage that? I will give you a personal example. So I had a situation where there was a release, and it was a good release. It was an improvement to one of the big products in Reich, and as it sometimes happens, we could not think about all the scenarios far ahead, right? So we thought about almost everything except this one thing. I cannot talk about which one, but one of the scenarios didn't work for one of the customers. We got a call within 2 hours from the release. And the situation was that our workflow broke. We cannot manage our work anymore. So we did not have a time to kind of think about it, to include the team, and to do all of that. We had 30 seconds. And in 30 seconds, I had to make a decision. So how to actually kind of merge this together, how to combine this together, how to do that. So the strategy that I propose, and it really works for me at least, is first of all, stay transparent and keep your integrity. What I mean by that is if you're a leader, you're open, you're talking to your team, you're explaining things, you're including them at least in the conversation, right? So keep doing that. Even if you had to change to directive management temporarily, keep doing that. And you could explain it in a very open manner. You can talk to your team and explain that this happened, I had to make these decisions, this is why I didn't include you in that, this is why I made these decisions, and this is why we have to do it this way. Second thing, when hard times come, you need help. You need people to kind of stand back to back with you. And it is okay to show your vulnerability in that and to ask for help, because you need that help, frankly. You're not that powerful. Without a team, you're basically nothing. If you ask someone, what does a product manager do without a team? Well, the answer is there could be a roadmap, that could be a description of the product, that could be anything, a presentation, but customers won't see that. So you need help from your team. And if you do that in terms of help, and you're saying like, okay, we're doing directive management right now. I'm telling you what to do because we're in a crisis, but at the same time, you're helping me, or we're helping each other to overcome this. Then in this case, this might make your team actually stronger. And I truly believe in that. And again, I want to stress it again and again. Explain this change. And explain that this is not because you're not interested in other people's opinions. This is not because you're not kind of engaged. And this is because the situation calls for it. And if you have valid reasons for that, and this is very important, then you can convince your team that this is the right thing to do. But remember that if this is an excuse to kind of make it easier, because it's very easy to come and say, you're doing that. And if it's not a crisis, then you will not be able to convince your team. So it all depends on whether or not you have valid reasons. And I believe that all of us in crisis do have valid reasons, and we will be able to have a valid and healthy communication with our team. So honesty is always the best policy. Be open, be engaged in an open discussion, and all of that will really work, and maybe will even make your team stronger. The second strategy I'd like to talk about is professional boundaries. It's a little bit different. We're shifting gears right now. So let me talk about what it is. So we all have boundaries as people, and basically our boundaries define who we are. That's a term from psychology, but it applies very well to professional work, and it becomes a problem in a crisis, in a hard time, in a situation where everything is challenging. Your professional boundaries experience additional pressure. And let me explain why. So if we look at the typical product management job, right, like all we do, then we have a very wide responsibility span in terms of we are responsible for a lot of things. And our job description might be very long and vague, include a lot of stuff, right? And then our thinking range, so in terms of what do we see in our horizon, is also very high and wide, because we're thinking from the company mission top down to the stories in the backlog and specifications and sometimes technical details. And we cannot omit that top part with the company mission, because that way we cannot steer our roadmap towards that, right? And third thing is that we have a very strong sense of ownership, because a good product manager is the owner, right? We own our product, and that is why we can make it better. And so in this way, there is this saying that a product manager is a mini CEO of their product. If you think about it, the answer to the question, what does the product manager do, is everything. Everything you need to do to make your product successful, that's what product manager does. But all of that is right, all of that is correct, but in hard times, in a crisis, or in challenging environment, this can transform to an inflamed sense of responsibility. Your sense of responsibility can be so big that you might think or start feeling this way, that you're responsible for everything. And that's what I'm saying right now is very personal, because I've experienced that, and I know that it has to be controlled. You have to do something about it. Well, we'll talk about it. And this, again, funny picture says about, I'm responsible for everything that goes wrong. And if something goes wrong, I feel responsible for that, right? But can we be responsible for everything that goes wrong? and what happens to us if we feel responsible for everything that goes wrong. That's a challenging situation in its own, right? So when you're in a crisis, there's a lot of pressure. Risks blow up. A lot of things go wrong, right? And if you look at the kind of diagram that I've done, let's say we have a circle where it's me. It's my own things that belong to me, things that I'm definitely controlling, like my car, for example. I control whether or not I buy it or sell it or drive it or not, right? So this is mine. And then there's things that I can change. I can influence the roadmap of the team, and I share it with my team. I can do the presentation. I can move that product initiative. I can vote for something. This is what I can change. But then there are things that I cannot change at all. Circumstances, COVID-19, economy, I don't know, hackers intruding your system. These are the things you cannot change at all. These are the things that you absolutely cannot control, and they're very far away from you. But if we're responsible for everything, we're starting to feel like all of it is our responsibility, and that's a problem. So my suggestion is to very literally draw a boundary where something that you can change ends. If you cannot change that, if you cannot change circumstances, explain to yourself and say it out loud, or even write it on the piece of paper. This is what I can change. This is what is circumstance, and this is what comes to me. And this is what I react to. But this is not my responsibility. And that includes, by the way, such things as if I'm managing a part of the product, I'm not managing the other part of the product. And I cannot impact that. And I should not impact that, because I have to be focused on what I can change and what I really foster and what I care for. And so personal strategy in terms of boundaries would be that I know as a fact what I was responsible for before this crisis emerged. And very literally, you can make a list of the things that you were responsible for. And let's say I was responsible for the team's progress along the goals, along the roadmap, stuff like that. And then when a challenging time comes, the times have changed. So the things have changed, the situation has changed, and the new circumstances evolved, right? And then say to yourself that you cannot change the circumstances. And now our responsibility changes. So in this way, we can look at it as, right now I'm responsible for stabilizing things, for safety and security of my own product, of my team, of things I'm responsible for, and then for turning crisis into normal. Let's imagine that we have a situation. This is a synthetic situation where, for example, you have a huge crash of your storage. If storage crashes, sometimes it really is catastrophic. And disaster recovery will work for quite some time. You will have to spend a lot of time kind of recovering from the situation. You will have a lot of mitigation with your clients, with your customers, with people who are using your service. So there's a lot of things that you will have to do, right? All of that is not your responsibility in terms of it happened because it happened, but it is your responsibility now to stabilize it, right? And it has nothing to do with your roadmap. Your roadmap goes out the window immediately as it happens. And so that is why it makes no sense to worry about the roadmap. And if you make it transparent enough, everyone will agree with you. And it is very important to say that our plan has changed now. And it is very important to say how. And we'll talk about it in the next section. So how to change your plan when something unexpected happens. However, that doesn't mean that we have to drag our cartwheel into different directions. For those of you who are not Russian, this is a kind of a Russian proverb, which talks about a cartwheel that is powered by 3 different animals. And these animals really kind of don't have any alignment. I think that after stabilization and after we did kind of the emergency things, we still have to align to global goals, and that way this situation won't happen. And then naturally, it comes down to how do we change our plan and what happens with our plans and roadmaps when crisis emerges. And I think that this is where our discussion becomes very practical, because right now in this crisis, a lot of the priorities have changed, right? But do we understand exactly how and what exactly is the change, how it's going to work and all that? So crisis will reset your plan. Everything will change, and it will not be kind of actual anymore. So all of your goals, targets, plans, timelines, commitments, all of it can go out the window, as I said. And I suggest the following framework for crisis prioritization. There are 3 areas that you can focus on. And first of all, this is kind of the tactical, a tactical mindset. So this is the tactical span. This is what you're doing right now. And the first thing is stabilization. By that, I mean that if the situation is unstable, if, for example, crash of your server causes crash of your further servers, or degradation of the service can lead to degradation of the whole service altogether, to a shutdown, then this is where you have to do stabilization. This is where you have to make the situation at least stable, so it is to prevent further damage. But the second thing is safety and security. Why it is after stabilization? Why is security after such important thing as stabilization? Why not security first? There's a very strong reason for that. If your situation is unstable, it's even more dangerous than having a security hole or something. You have to kind of stabilize your situation and then care for safety. And then you do impact relief. So basically, when something happened, when you lost data on where you have to do a backup restore. If you don't have a backup, then you have to do customer communication or something. If you have a security problem, you have to make sure that the data is saved, all the passwords are reset and all that. Thank God in Reich we never had that, but still we have to be prepared for that. So that's the tactical layer of what you can do. Then the second layer is strategic. So basically it's a long-term vision of things that you can do and should do in crisis. And first of all, that's do the root cause analysis and do the fixes. Sounds obvious, but oftentimes this is not done. If something happened, it had a reason. And by fixing this reason, you can, of course, prevent this from happening again, and you can make it so that your next crisis will be less severe, or it won't happen at all, right? But only after that, you have to do systematic changes. So there are changes to do the whole thing, right? So as an example, if you do not have a redundancy policy in your data storage, I'm talking about data storage a lot as an example, because this is something where the crisis will definitely lead to catastrophic consequences. So then the systematic changes can happen. If we're talking about COVID-19, for example, we can talk about systematic changes in terms of how do we approach work in general for it to be suited for both office and remote work. Whatever happens, we're always ready if we do have this platform underneath it. I'll give you an example. Reich is an online collaboration platform, and as all companies, we do eat our own food, right? So we're eating our own product in terms of we're using it for development of the product, for managing marketing campaigns, for managing people, for doing all of it, right? And that is why, because it's in the cloud, when pandemic happened, we all switched to home work, remote work, and all of it remained in the cloud, accessible. And so none of the data was lost. None of the communication links were broken. everything remained as it was. And that really kind of was a systematic change that was done way before. And if that is not done right now in your company, that is something that you could do to prevent this from happening in the future. But only after those stabilization, safety, impact relief, and root cause analysis steps. And then you're building a safety net. So that's kind of your redundancy plan. So to give you an example, I don't want to talk about storage anymore. To give an example, if we talk about intrusion, for example, if we talk about security for the online system, we don't want any intrusion, right? But it is impossible to prevent it 100%, right? Because the code is changing, everything is changing. Our attackers are using new ways to kind of sneak into our system and all that. But what we can do is we can implement intrusion prevention systems. We can implement analytic systems that analyze the data and logs and then report suspicious activities to us, stuff like that. But that's only systematic changes are done. And then the third and the last layer is the stable priorities. The stable priorities include all of the things that we were doing before the crisis. So these are our goals from the stable time. So remember February, remember December. These are the priorities we had way back then, right? They're different from what we have right now because of the tactical and strategic changes that we're doing to avoid this crisis that we have right now, right? All of us. And these are your third priority. And then all of the approved plans, roadmaps, timelines, as a result from these goals, all of that is our third layer, including promises and commitments. So I suggest that if you're in the hard crisis, if you're in a situation where you want to step up and say, okay, this is the red mode, then you have to draw the line right there under tactical and strategic. And there are few valid reasons for that. Because if you only do your stable priorities, so something you had before, and your tactical kind of things to mitigate your crisis, then that damage that has to be done will not be alleviated as good because your focus is still on the stable priorities. So imagine I was building a product and my team was developing that product and we had a roadmap. So let's take Write Calendars, for example. And we were doing Write Calendars and then something happens, something really kind of requiring our attention. And so in this situation, we're still developing our calendars. We're still doing a tool for online road mapping and mapping tasks, projects on the calendar. And on top of that, we're adding some of the damage control on the tactical level. Our team is still focused on the calendar. Our team is still busy for like 99% or maybe 100% on that. Our tactical efforts will not be effective. And then we will probably resolve the tactical situation. So we will probably mitigate the fire and the fire will be extinguished, but it will come again. We didn't do anything to mitigate it in the future. We omitted that. We did not have that second layer. And that damage will multiply because once it's done, the next time is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. You want to avoid that. And so the other approach, which will also fail, will be to do stable and strategic priorities. So that would mean still do the calendar and do the systematic changes, do the safety net, all that. So if we do that, then we will not relieve the damage that is done tactically, and the damage will multiply itself, even in this particular situation. And then what could happen because of that, because we didn't mitigate the situation, then you will have domino effect, because one thing will lead to another thing, and that will cause further damage, right? So it's a big problem. And then your results out of the stable priorities, so my development of the calendar, for example, will be hindered by that because we have a lot of damage happening all the time. So that doesn't work. And then the third and the most probably popular approach that we might try is to do all of it. So keep doing calendars, extinguish the fire, and do the safety net mitigation root cause analysis. Most probably you allocated all of your resources even before something happened, right? So remember what happened with your teams before the pandemic, right? All of them were busy 100%, right? If we're doing something new, if we're adding 2 more priorities, like extinguish that fire right now, so do the root cause analysis and fix things systematically, that's like 3 times the work. You can stretch what your teams can do, but only temporary and up to an extent. You cannot stretch it infinitely, right? So that's a problem. And there's a law of conservation of energy, right? So you cannot fit all of it into one bucket. And at the end of the day, if you have all the priorities at once, you have 0 priorities. You have chaos. That just doesn't work, and we as product managers know that. And the last strategy I want to talk about is burnout. This is probably the least kind of product management thing from one point of view, but at the same time, this is probably the most product management thing, because we PMs can often experience burnout, and in product management culture, and it is a known thing to happen. There are a few reasons for that. So first of all, we do have a sense of ownership, but again, remember we were talking about that sense of ownership, which in crisis can lead to an inflated sense of ownership, an inflated sense of responsibility. We can start feeling responsible for everything. That's a lot of responsibility, so it's a blessing in disguise in this case. And then the environment is changing, even without the crisis, without the pandemic, without the hackers that attack us, without all of that, it is already changing frequently. Our competitive situation changes frequently. The market changes frequently. Our customers are growing. Our requirements are changing. So everything is very, very volatile. So that's that creates an environment where we have to live in. And then there's high level of uncertainty, right? This is a natural cause of that, but still it is there. And with that, we have a wide area of responsibility. We are responsible for a lot of things, and ultimately we're responsible for the result. And on top of that, we're doing a lot of communication, right? So basically, communication is probably one of the main tools and instruments that that the product manager actually uses. Talking to people, convincing your stakeholders, talking and listening to your customer, understanding them, and getting into negotiation with them. This is a lot of talking, a lot of communication, and that comes with an emotional toll. And then with the teams and with stakeholders, we're using our mental state, the state in where we are, what we believe in, as a tool, as an instrument as well, which is also very expensive in terms of how we are allocating our emotional resource. So that is why burnout is no surprise for a product manager, even in the stable times. But then what happens when the crisis comes? And I suggest looking at this like that. I don't think personally that there is work-life balance. And you might think that this guy's crazy. I think that once you own things, once you're a product manager, what you own becomes your life, and your product becomes part of your life. And that way, we have a life-life balance. We have 2 parts of our life. One part is work, one part is our product, and the other part is our relationships with loved ones, with our family, with what we do, and with the world. But there are 2 wings which help you fly. Both are life. There's no work. And you need to identify burnout really early and better kind of be prepared for it. So there are a few things that cause that are kind of markers for burnout. So basically, subjectively, you might feel that everything is very bad. The situation is very kind of unfavorable, and everything is not in not in order that you would like to see it. But if you look at the reality, if you're honest with it, it is not that bad. And if you see that, this is definitely burnout. If you're cynical towards your job inside, it doesn't mean that you're acting like that. But if you feel cynical, if you don't feel attached anymore, if you're kind of, if you start departing from that, this is burnout. If you have accomplishments and you have wins and you have won customers and you have won great releases with great metrics, and you do not feel this as rewarding, this is burnout. And you can read a lot about that. Important point is that if that correlates with pressure, so basically the higher the pressure, the higher these things happen, the more they happen. And if you go away, like for example on a vacation, and you feel temporary relief, that's definitely burnout. So to prevent burnout, there are a few things. First of all, switching context. Our brain is overloaded when it is doing the same thing all over again. That's why we sleep. And you need some sleep from that part of life, which is your work. And this is hard because if you are in a crisis and if the situation is hard, if you will just do something else, just go for a walk, for example, you will have a hard time just switching your brain to something else. If you don't, well, this is really great. But if you're like me and you're emotionally invested in your work, this is going to be hard. So you need something to kind of force this. And to force this, you make a forced switch. There are a few things to do forced switch. There are good things to do forced switch and bad things to do forced switch. Definitely, I would not recommend using something like alcohol, for example, which will force you to switch, but that's a depressant, and it will actually kind of suppress the brain rather than stimulate it to do something good. But you can do sport, for example. All of the physical activities, like building something with your hands, playing an instrument, whatever it is, a piano or guitar or whatever, doing sport really forces your mind to change. Because when you're doing something, your brain is focused on what you're doing. You can do other ways of forced switch, such as guided meditation or things like that, but that requires some experience to learn. Sport does not. You will need to find some place to rest or some ways to rest. There are a few strategies. So you need to have an active rest. So going for a vacation with a beach, in my opinion, won't work because you will lay down there and think about your crisis, right? So that doesn't work. But if it's walking in the mountains, for example, if you have a hike, that works because that's active activity. It's far away, and if you can do it uninterrupted, that's good. It is impossible probably to have a slack off all the time in your vacation, but if you can keep your commitment to minimum and just respond to those things that you cannot miss, well, I can tell you, even in the hardest situations, it's all going to be good. And at the end of the day, you have to have your personal well-being as a priority. This is important, and that's not only important for you and for me and for all of us. That's also important for the company and for the business. And that's the very important and very interesting part. So basically, our mental state, the way we feel, has direct impact on how we perform. The better we feel, the better product managers we are, right? And at the end of the day, our mental state is also an asset for our business. And if it is, then we have to prioritize our well-being above some other things, right? We have to do prioritization in there. And sometimes we have to prioritize our well-being above all else, above everything. If it is required by the situation, if it is required by how you feel, do it. Because otherwise, you will burn out, that's not going to be efficient, the product management work is not going to be done, right? So what's the use of that? And it is a very important and interesting thing that I was thinking about, that if you don't include yourself and your well-being, your own time, your rest, your sport, all of that in your prioritization, if you don't have a backlog that contains your own and then work, then that's part of your own scope, which includes your product and your life. But this part about life doesn't have an owner, because an owner, a product manager, comes to a scope and prioritizes it, right? So basically, you have to prioritize it. That's ownership. And to sum up, first of all, if the situation is hard, maintain leadership. Even in the hardest times, even in the hardest situations, you may get good results if you still remain yourself and remain a leader and explain to your team why do you have to make decisions in a directive way if you have to. Then clearly identify, maybe written form, maybe as a diagram or something, what you are responsible for, what's out of the scope of your responsibility, what you can impact, what is out of your impact. And then keep your focus on your responsibility only. Just consciously make an effort and be inside that circle. That will help you kind of limit the anxiety that might happen. And in hard situations, do extreme prioritization. It is not like any other prioritization. It's very different. As I said, sometimes we have to throw out all the roadmap out the window, but temporarily to alleviate the crisis, right? And your tactical and systematic things should be your top priority, and then everything else, including your previous roadmap. If you have resources to allocate to your previous roadmap after that, no problem, prioritize that. And as soon as your crisis becomes less and less severe, you will allocate more and more time to that. Your roadmap will return. And then prevent burnout. I'm saying prevent because when it already happened, it's really, really hard to get out of it. I had such cases. I consciously had a battle with it. And it was successful, but that's really hard. And I suggest, like, see the early signs. Don't let it happen. And then you have to think about this, not only in terms of how you feel, but also in terms of how your team feels. Because with all this COVID-19, for example, it is a known fact that burnout risk is growing, because working from home is really, really hard. It's harder to work from home. And my own personal estimation is that at least 30% harder than it is to do the same job from the office. I've never thought I would say that, but this seems to be true. And that is why, if you care for your team members, you have to explain that to them. You have to maybe kind of provide them some guidance in that term. And then this is all because without an effective team, we will have to have a really hard time, right? We will not be able to deal with the crisis we have, right? That's it. Thank you very much. And I'm not sure what about the time. I think I'm over time, right?
Anton, thank you very much. Yes, I think we're a little bit out of time. Probably it would be best if we could ask you to answer the questions on YouTube. So if you could just join, and there's—
Sure. No, absolutely. I have it on my screen right now, and I will answer each one of the questions that are there.
Cool. And I think that the tips that you provided we can all take all of them with you, with us, and to prevent ourselves from burnouts, to make sure that we can continue work even after crisis is over.
Yeah.
So in terms of timing, I think that we have time for another break. So as I mentioned, Anton will be joining YouTube and answering all of your questions. There is even a conversation with different opinions. So I think you can continue doing that. And we will be back for our next topic in exactly sharp 10 minutes. Thank you all. See you in 10 minutes. All right, and we're back on, and we're happy to invite Martin. Martin, are you with us?
I am. Hey, everybody.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining. And so Martin will be talking about, emerging product trends due to the COVID-19. And I guess that we'll know more in detail in a short while.
Awesome. Thank you, Maria, for the introduction. And so let me just share the screen so we can see it well. Let me know if you can see my slides, please. I think you should be able to.
Yep, we can see it.
Yeah, awesome. So, hi, everybody. Hi again. My name is Martin. I'm a product manager at Product Board. If you don't know us, we are a product management system, and we are on a mission to get the world rid of bad products, so to speak. This is what we say. It usually resonates with us pretty well because we are product managers. Most of our customers are actually product managers as well, which is a funny thing, and I will use it in my presentation as well. Moving, in the next couple slides that I will be sharing with you, and we are trying to help the product managers and makers build great products through understanding their customers better, prioritizing what to build next, and aligning organizations around the roadmap. As I said, the great thing about us having product managers as customers is that we can talk to them a lot, right? Product managers are great people in general, and they are very open to having discovery calls and talking with us on various topics. And the recent crisis, COVID-19, has definitely come up as a topic in our recent discussions with our customers. It's something that resonates and will definitely have a huge impact on the industry, on product management in general. You've seen some of the examples of it in Dimas and Anton's presentations already. So talking to our customers is definitely one angle that I would like to highlight here. And the second one is that we coincidentally, as a company, we found ourselves in a quarterly product prioritization session just when all the lockdowns started and everybody started talking about pandemic, and we really had to react to the situation as it was unfolding. So it shouldn't be much of a surprise when I show you this picture. I mean, like, everyone's seen it many times on the media, on the news, it's been everywhere. The COVID-19 crisis has really impacted whole economies around the globe. Like, no discussion around that. It's probably just getting started. We haven't seen the end of it, unfortunately. I don't want to be the bad prophet, but it's probably what's going to happen. So we've not seen the end of it. And we as product managers, we really are the guardians of the decision-making processes in large parts of our organizations and companies and product teams, deciding what to build and what not to build. So we really have to think twice if what happens around us, what's happening around us, is not going to affect this prioritization process. So the decisions that we make. So we need to be aware of what is happening in the industry and on the market, and how can we best react to the current situation. Going forward, I tried to generalize a couple of themes that we see among our customers and product managers, and we see in general on the market. I call them the disruptions and otherwise calm lives of product managers. I hope you guys appreciate the salty sarcasm that's in there. Yes, obviously product management job is tough. We've seen now the great comment from Anton when he mentioned that life balance or work-life balance is important, and burnout is a thing. I'll actually talk about it in a little bit as well. So product managers' lives are not calm, just to level with everybody, but the COVID pandemic has definitely brought this to another level. So a few topics from our perspective, what we think is currently happening on the market, and especially from the perception of the product manager, and what might be important for you to watch out for. The most important one that I think should be the cornerstone of like every discussion that you have with product management teams and the product teams are the changing priorities and needs of your customers. Example, right? Have you ever seen so many webinars and remote meetups that are happening nowadays? I mean, it's insane. I'm very much looking forward to like meeting people in person again, and I'm really grateful for having this ability to do these meetups online. We have Zoom and we have YouTube and all these things. It's great and you can do that, but it wasn't like that before. And another example might be the working from home versus working from the offices. The biggest driver of digitization in the whole economy has been COVID-19, right? Like no governmental subsidies or no program. It was an illness that brought everyone to the web. Like e-commerce is booming. Everything is happening here. And the question is, will this stay? Like, will this be the same? So are we still going to do as much of stuff online, or will we just return to the offices when everything is normal, right? So when the lockdown is lifted, the pandemic is over, so to speak. We'll just start working co-located again, and no more remote offices. Just a question. I'm not giving any answers here. Or is the new normal actually going to change the way we operate in these things? And I use these examples just to illustrate that the needs and behaviors of the customers can change rapidly. And it should be a job of you, product managers, to be able to distinguish whether these changes are only temporary and will go away when the situation stabilizes, or whether this is something deeper, something that is prevalent, something that will stay and disrupt the whole concept of jobs to be done, of needs and behaviors of the customers that you understood before in the business as usual scenario. This is really hard, but this should be the cornerstone of your discussions, because if you don't align your product strategy with what is happening right there with your customers and with their needs, that might be the difference between a product that's successfully adapted to the new normal, quotation marks, new normal, or a failed one, or a failed product. So I think this is the most important of the disruptions. Change in needs, and we spoke about it before as well. So the change in needs obviously can change the release plans that you had before. So release plans are disrupted due to reduced productivity, but also due to the change of needs. We are all agile nowadays, right? So we welcome change, and we need to make sure that we are aligned with wherever the market is heading. So this is completely normal, but this the magnitude of what's happening right now is just way bigger than what we were accustomed to before. An example from the market, and you might be aware of it, you might have noticed that, for example, Google in March announced that it's pausing any releases to Google Chrome for some time, and subsequently had to reschedule all their upcoming releases just because they were disrupted by everyone started working remotely. So everybody says, yes, we are remote ready, we are remote friendly, and whatever, but yeah, there aren't that many companies that have all the processes set up in a way that enables them to do that. There is usually like an efficiency reduction in which you can see in the product teams as they start working remotely. There aren't that many processes. The people are not used to over communicate information on Slack or wherever in documents. So it takes time to ramp up. It takes time to prepare those processes and actually be efficient working remotely. And the third reason for this is obviously layoffs and post hiring. There are many cases from the industry where the teams are already starting laying off people. Unfortunately, product managers and engineers. So the product managers need to make do with fewer engineers and fewer capacity on their hands, which also influences the release plans disruption. Which leads to the favorite topic of everybody here, that the product managers are stressed. Yeah, they're usually stressed. They are stressed almost like on a daily basis, if I oversimplify this. But today everybody is usually stressed. So the release plans is definitely one of the reasons for that, right? So you had a plan, and now the leadership is pushing on you that the deliverables are getting pushed. That something that you promised to your customers, for example, if you do that, is not getting delivered at a certain date. So it is straining product managers for sure. And I wanted to highlight here that preserving your mental health is an important topic, and product managers should really find some time to relax and to spend time working on their mental health. This crisis will go away one day, and it's paramount that we get out of it sane and healthy. All that Anton said was really great around it. I would highlight that it's all applicable here as well. Mental health is important, so take care of yourself, everybody. And now to be proactive about this, right? So what should product managers do to respond to these disruptions? What might be the best way to move forward? So we identified what's happening in the market, and now it's time to act in the product team, so to speak. And again, my favorite one to begin with, rally everyone around the product vision. It should be the main focus for product managers. If you're starting a new initiative, if you have new teams, or even if you have teams that have been with themselves together for quite some time, it should be the same story. In the challenging times, really align on what really matters. Product team should be reminded what is their grand goal, what's the purpose, because ultimately it's not about leadership, right? Like the leadership is usually pushing on something, pushing on you, or the customers are pushing on you, but it's not about them being happy or the board being happy, but you're responsible for the customer's happiness. That's the ultimate responsibility of you. So you should take that into consideration, and you should use the product vision as the guidepost for it. So take a moment to reflect on it. Be sure that it's still up to date, that it still makes sense under the new circumstances of the COVID crisis. And if not, try to update it so that it is actually up to date and make sense in the current situation. For example, product board's vision is to be the product system of record for every digital product out there. And the question that we need to ask ourselves is, how do we get there under the new normal conditions? So has anything changed in the strategy that would take us there? And that's the important question that we had to ask ourselves during the recent crisis and during the prioritization that we did then. The second thing that's it's important, that it's not a surprise, I guess, because I had this one as the major disruption in the market, is that you should listen to changing customer needs and priorities, and you should listen to them even more so than you listened to them before. It is very likely that the customer needs will be impacted by the current crisis, depending on your industry, obviously, but most likely everybody's going to be impacted to some level and extent by the current crisis. If you're not doing that already, start spending as much time talking and observing your customers and prospects. Start talking more to the customer-facing teams, to the salespeople, to the customer success and support, to spot any trends in the customer behaviors that you see there, if anything is changing really. So you are trying to spot whether there is a new trend emerging, there is a new job to be done if your customers and users, for example, emerging. So you can plan for that. For example, product board, we cater to 3 main jobs of the product makers. The first one is we try to help them understand their customer needs better. we help them prioritize what to build next and align organizations on the roadmap. So there are 3 core, let's say, pillars of product board that we have. And when you take our vision, right? So we want to be the digital system of record for every product. But this is not usually what product makers come to product board with as trialers. They are not looking for a product management system. They are looking for a road mapping solution, for example, or they're looking for something to help them with prioritization. And we see that even more so during the crisis, a very specific needs the customers are trying to solve. So they are not looking for something very high level and strategic. They are trying to find a tool, a system that helps them with their very tactical problem they have during the crisis. So they want to build a roadmap to better align and communicate to stakeholders, or to prioritize their solution better. But if we focus only on building the product management system and we don't see the changing needs of the customers, we might be losing many prospects along the way, because we are not solving the current needs better, or we are not understanding it better. The third one that is connected to that is that you should try to make your product less complicated to evaluate. These are uncertain times, and it will be only tougher and tougher to make a prospect commit to a new product offering, especially in the larger enterprise situation, or in like for bigger companies. It will be more difficult and more difficult. What product managers can do about it? Product managers should strive for simplification for the entry level experience scenarios. So be it a trial situation, or be it a free or freemium product that you have, and test rigorously the time to value for the new users. This goes hand in hand with pricing and packaging, for sure. That's a total different discussion. But product managers should be aware of that as well, right? And for example, when we investigated what our trial user experience looked like, with the knowledge of most of the customers are actually trying to solve their road mapping needs, we found out that the most important jobs for the trial users across the segments of the trial is really road mapping, tightly coupled with prioritization as well. So the majority of the trial startupists or startup trialists, if from another perspective, they want to start with a roadmap, but this is something that they want to get to. And at the moment in the product, to get to a roadmap, you have to invest a lot of time. Oh, well, not a lot of time. You have to invest some time and some data into the system to get to a roadmap, that's sort of an output of a process. Therefore, the time to value for those users is pretty long. Is pretty long, and we might lose them along the way, because the value that they're looking for is really at the end of the process, and we just need to bring it more forward so they understand the value much faster and shorter. So that's an example of how you should think about making the complicated product less complicated, so the evaluation is smoother and more streamlined. And to support all this, you should double down on your efforts to rely on objective data to understand usage, to understand how your users use the product. Product teams, across the globe nowadays rely on data, so the quantitative analysis is present. It should definitely complement the qualitative part of the discovery, right? So you have feedback from your customers, or you understand the needs and the jobs to be done. And so you have a lot of data points around usage. So you run experiments on features, you measure events in your products, and so on. However, the normal or the standard trends or the standard reports that you run usually work well under the business as usual scenario. So when you have something extraordinary, as we have right now with COVID-19, you really should dive deeper into the customer behaviors and what's happening with their behaviors and their needs, just to spot trends. Again, trends is going to be the keyword for today from me. if the users are shifting from one part of the product to another, what do the retention cohorts look like? So if you're not basically leaking customers through a leaky bucket, so to speak. So if the features are sticky enough, how are different features performing engagement-wise against each other, for example? And we did that. So we are actually trying to make our engagement framework more robust. So we define what it means for a user, right, to be engaged with a certain feature, with a certain sub job of a customer need with product board, to find especially to find features that solve a critical need of a customer, but is underperforming in the retention and engagement metrics. So the customers try it out, but they just stop using it after some time, or they're not that engaged. And if we think that the problem is really worth solving, then we really should be thinking about how to reinvent the solution and the product, because this is the time when we should be simplifying things, when we should be explaining the solution better. And if the solution is just not good enough, we should be coming up with a better one. To summarize the key takeaways from this, really rally everyone around the product vision. So I would say this is the key thing for a product manager. You should be aware of what the product vision is. You should be able to explain it internally and externally as well, and to keep everyone motivated, so everybody understands. So this is where we want to go. It makes total sense, and it makes total sense even during the COVID crisis. Second point is that you should identify the emerging needs on the market. So this is a great external push from COVID. So something is happening on the market. You should try to identify what it is, how it affects your customer needs and problems, and reinvent the underperforming solutions. So if there are any solutions that are bad or are not performing as you would expect, and they still make sense from the problem perspective, do reinvent them. Spend the time and reinvent them. And the third one, reduce the time to value for prospects, because it will be tougher and tougher to get a buy-in from a prospect to sign up to a new product, to try it out, and to experience the aha moment, so the value of your product that you're offering. So make it as smooth as possible. Try to explain it to them faster, so they get to the moment faster, and they ultimately subscribe, and they build great products. That's everything from me. So I will give the word back to Maria, I guess.
Yes, thank you. It's quite interesting, right? So I was thinking about simplification piece that you talked. So I think it's great time to not build on difficult scenarios, but really simple ones. And I think it's also a great time for some features to be revisited, right? Because like the economy says, hey, it's more valuable right now. Maybe it's really that time that we look at this feature and probably make it better or finally ship it, right? So we can see that happening at Rike as well. All right, so
Totally.
Let's check our live chat for some question. Well, it seems like probably there are no questions in the moment. So maybe I could ask some of my questions, right? So what was the most challenging piece for you personally during the COVID-19? So what you had to change in the way you work or in the way you act during these times?
Yeah. It's a great question. Like for me personally, I would say working from home was the biggest challenge. It's not a I would say it's not a novel answer to that question, to be honest. But yeah, for me personally, that was a challenge, because like I didn't have the working environment set up as a lot of our colleagues, right? So I have engineers on my team who didn't even have like a table at home, so they had to go to IKEA to buy a table just to be able to work, because they just weren't set up for the working from home scenario. So like we really were a collocated product team, company. We're trying to change it now. We do have one remote dedicated team that will stay remote even after the crisis. But yeah, for me, this was the biggest challenge.
I think it took time for everyone to set up their homes. Well, I think that for families, the families with the kids, it's probably the toughest. To juggle between work and taking care of your kids, and and having a place to calmly work and concentrate.
Yeah, it took some time to pick the virtual background on Zoom as well. So the post-quitting one, Maria, I like your very much. I might actually ask you for the image as well afterwards.
Sure. Well, I'm just taken from IKEA website actually. So they're
Awesome.
good at design, right?
it's a Japanese IKEA, as I see it, right?
Yeah, sort of. It seems like it's Japanese market who decided to post those. Okay. A question for you. What are the COVID-19 inspired new features by Product Board?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. So, like from the simplification perspective, we are trying to simplify the road mapping experience. So rethink the roadmap that we currently have in Product Board. Try to make it more streamlined. Try to finally get the timeline going as well. A couple of things that were floating around on our portal for quite some time. So we're trying to bring it together and ship a unified solution. And another one that's from the bucket of the underperforming solutions might be the segmentation. So segmentation is a part of the product management process, right? When you try to prioritize what to build next, and you really need to understand what's the target segment of customers that you are catering to. So this one was not that successful in the past, so we're trying to rethink it.
Okay, that's it's about time, right?
Yeah.
All right. There's actually a question for me. What is the name of the parrot behind me? I don't know what's the name. I haven't named it, but that's probably the question to those who created the background. All right. It seems like that's it, Martin. Again, thank you so much for joining and talking about the challenges that you face from your perspective, from a Product Board perspective.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Sure. And so I guess that's about it in terms of our today's meetup. Well, thanks for staying with us. I know it was not simple to stay for more than 2 hours, but we had great speakers who covered so many topics, and I think we can, walk away with a bunch of recipes to take to our product initiatives, to our product decisions, and also some personal advices, so we can, stay sane in these COVID times. We shared a feedback form. Please take a minute just to fill out. We would like to hear from you. It's a new initiative for us to switch to online meetups. Please take time to fill it out. We are happy to hear your feedback so we can improve and come back with a better way of conducting those meetups. Again, thank you to everyone who joined and stayed with us. Thanks, Anton and Dmitry, who probably already left because he had got some sleep because it was late, and Martin. Thanks for taking time to prepare and share your advices with us. And finally, so if you would like to revisit, or for those who couldn't join, so we'll be sharing this the recording of this meeting. Of this meetup. So just expect an email from us. And I'll pass it over to Anton. So if you would like to add anything.
Actually, you said everything. So I'd like to say big thanks to everyone for participating in this meetup, all the speakers also. And yes, you can find all the videos here in the Rector Club channel, and we do the announcements in all the platforms you registered. So thank you for the participating, and see you next time. Follow us, and I hope you enjoyed this time. See you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.